Hello everybody and welcome to Omnipoke, the channel that brings you guys everything Pokemon. I'm Jack and today we're going to be taking a look at Greedent Suicune, one of the new sort of combinations that we can run with the brand new Greedent VMAX. Just before we get into it though, make sure you check out the Potown store where you can grab codes including the latest set celebrations and soon Fusion Strike as well. Make sure you use code Omnipoke for 5% off your order. So, the basic concept of the deck. The Suicune shell we've seen has worked very well before with Ice Rider, with Suicune and the Ludicolo engine, even as just sort of its own solo deck. So we know this kind of shell of Suicunes and Intellions works pretty well. Greedent can actually help steal some games against Intellion engines, single strike, and then Suicune still has that great tempo against some of the other attackers. So basically you can, or in most instances, you're going to look to sort of two-shot through a VMAX and then try and pick off either a Sobble or a Houndour, or even some of the other sort of more niche ones like Toxel with Greedent VMAX to hopefully try and take your other three prizes of the game. So, onto the lists, kicking things off with 4 Suicune, of course. Fleet-footed is a fantastic ability, just letting you draw an extra card. If Suicune is in the active, it's only one card, but it's definitely well worth the addition, and it's a really, really nice ability to have. And then Blizzard Rondo for 2 energy, doing 20, plus 20 for each bench Pokemon, so capping out at 220 here. Obviously, there's a fair few decks right now that like to really go wide on the board. The new Fusion Strike decks want to go wide. They want to have lots of Fusion Pokemon down to be able to draw with Genesect. All of these Inteleon decks are still about. Single Strike still wants a lot of Houndours out in a lot of instances. So this Blizzard Rondo attack is still very, very strong. The Greedent VMAX line is the big addition. As you can see, it's kind of overtaking the Ice Riders that are usually in the deck. We're instead running a 2-2 Greedent. The Greedent V, the new one, we feel is slightly better, with Body Slam for 2, dealing 40 and paralysing the opponent on a coin flip, and then Greedy Fangs for 3, doing 120 and drawing 3. You're very rarely going to be using these attacks. You're instead going to be using Greedent VMAX with the big stocks. I think in English it's been translated as something like Max. Oh, I can't remember what it is, but it's a really, really funny name. I think it's Make It Turn a Profit is what it's called. For 2 energy, you're doing 30 damage. If your opponent's active basic Pokemon is knocked out by damage from these attacks, or from this attack, you take 2 more prize cards. So as you can see, we're only doing 30, but in combination with quick shooting, plus a couple of other cards we're running in the list, we can try and deal with a Sobble and take 3 prizes on a Sobble, and then leave the other 3 prizes to Suicune, just going for Blizzard Rondos, which are a really efficient attack. So yeah, that's the kind of idea. Max Greed isn't a terrible attack either though, 160 for 3, and drawing 3 cards. That easily 2 shots into a lot of VMAXs, which is still not bad, to be honest. Then we have the usual Inteleon line. We've got 4 Sobble, 4 Drizzile. We've gone for a 3-1 split on Inteleon. Sometimes you see 2-2, sometimes you see 2-1. In this case, we've gone 3-1 simply because we want to be able to have as much access to Inteleon as possible. 1, to help us push through the VMAXs and stuff with Blizzard Rondo. Sometimes there could be situations where we can even just push through them with quick shootings rather than having to attack twice. And also it really helps in trying to set up enough damage to take out some of these V Pokemon with Cape of Toughness, things like Zacian and Genesect, and even other Suicunes. The extra Inteleon ping can help us push through those. But also, obviously, it helps us increase the amount of damage we can do in a turn with big stocks, essentially, or with turn of profit, to be able to essentially mean that we have a cap of 90 damage rather than 30 damage to try and take these 3 prizes. So even some of these Pokemon like Drizzile can even be accessible to us if we have all of our Inteleons down to be able to take a prize, or take extra prizes with Greedent's attack. So that's why we've gone with the 3-1 split. Obviously the 1 Inteleon, the Shady Dealings Inteleon, will help us smooth things out. You're going to see we run a real plethora of trainers and a couple of one-offs, which are very, very important for taking the extra prizes with Greedent. So it's important to be able to grab those when necessary. Onto the trainers, we have the full suite of 4 Quick Ball, 4 Evo Incense, and 4 Level Ball, just keeping things as consistent as possible. Intellion engines really like to see this, so no change there. We've got 2 Switch, just to be able to keep things moving. Obviously, being able to switch in between Suicunes can be pretty nice to be able to draw extra cards, but also being able to get into the Greedent at the right point is very important. 2 Cape of Toughness, again just buffing up our Suicunes, making them a little bit more survivable against some of these VMAXs, so that we definitely are able to take our first initial 3 prizes where we can. It's worth noting the Greedent combo doesn't happen in every game, and you shouldn't necessarily go for it in every game. It's more of a, it will happen in certain games and you will steal games from the opponent, but it's not necessarily the deck's only win con. But like I say, we've seen this package, this whole Suicune deck do really, really well with kind of any partner, and there's only 6 or 7 real major additions into the deck that kind of disrupt that kind of package that we know does well. So because of that, you can just go down the Suicune route in a lot of matchups where it's more favourable to, and win the game that way. So yeah, Cape of Toughness is still really important. 2 Capacious Bucket, just to be able to search out for some water energy. We want to be able to get them into the bin for Melony pretty readily as well. 1 Net, just to be able to reuse our Inteleon lines, our Drizziles, all of that good stuff. 1 Echoing Horn and 1 Toy Catcher. Now this is sort of the other Greedent combo package where we're going to Echoing Horn to try and grab something from the discard. Basically, this is going to force our opponents to be in a really bad spot where they can, if they don't know we're playing this, they don't know this, but if they do know we're playing this, we can force them to not ever be able to discard a Sobble, discard a Houndour, discard a Toxel or anything like that. And also if we have a KO one at any point, providing they don't have any recovery, and there's not many decks running recovery right now, we're always able to access that Echoing Horn, Toy Catcher, or the Echoing Horn for the Pokemon in our opponent's discard pile for that combo later on down the line. Toy Catcher then gusts up, providing the Pokemon has 50 HP or less. Now, obviously, at the moment, things like Sobble won't, but that's why we're running the Intellions, to be able to ping down these Pokemon into the 50 HP range, then be able to Toy Catcher them up, so that we don't even have to use our boss for turn as our supporter. We can even combo with a Melony and get a Greedent out of nowhere, just attach plus Melony, and then do the whole Echoing Horn Toy Catcher combo. We don't even need to use boss, so that's why the Toy Catcher is also in here as a one-off, to be able to really prey on these low HP basics. Supporter-wise, pretty standard for the Suicune decks. We've got 4 Melony just to be able to essentially keep our energy acceleration nice and up there, to be able to keep tempo with a lot of these 2 Prizer decks, as well as just draw some cards. We've got 2 Research, obviously still the best draw supporter in the game in almost all instances. 2 Boss, we're still running Boss because, like I say, the whole Toy Catcher combo doesn't come off in every game, and sometimes won't even be available in certain games depending on the matchup, so we still need Boss to be able to pick and choose our prizes here and there. And 1 Marnie. Admittedly, Marnie is one of the kind of sketchier counts, just because it's pretty low, but a lot of the time we want to be using things like Melony anyway, so we don't have time to Marnie. Some of the other Suicune lists were able to bump this up a little bit in certain instances. We have kept it a quite low count, but it's definitely very feasible to add more Marnies in because it's an incredibly strong card. And then energy wise, we have 5 waters. This is completely fine, we feel, because we have the 2 buckets and all of the Drizzile engine to search for them, so it shouldn't be too difficult to find waters and even get them into the bin. Running 3 powerful Colorless to again improve the amount of damage we can do with our Greedent. It means that we can also just have 1 Inteleon on the board and still be able to KO a Sobble, provided we can find some powerful Colorlesses. 30 into 50 with powerful Colorless is perfect for Toy Catcher math as well. So provided we have 1 powerful Colorless, whatever we Toy Catcher up, we will be taking 3 prizes on, which is great. And then 2 Capture Energy. Obviously, Suicune has Colorless in its cost, as does Greedent. So being able to capture basically whatever you want out is going to be really good. The Intellion line for being able to set up with Drizziles and stuff, but even just more Suicunes and stuff to keep the pressure from the attackers. So here's the full list if you wanted to take a quick screenshot. On to some techs. The most exciting ones are actually the new glove cards. Now, most of these have been completely memed here until now, but the sponge gloves, the justified gloves, and the rubber gloves are the 3 we see as being the most useful, with a huge emphasis on the sponge gloves, just because the sponge gloves hit the Sobbles, and Sobbles are in a huge amount of decks right now. So that would be the one, if you were adding one in, we would recommend. But obviously justified gloves helps with the Houndours, and rubber gloves helps with things like Toxel, which looks to be a very easily splashable tech into the Fusion Strike decks. So there is reason to maybe try out one of those, one of the other 2 gloves as well, but we think if you're making space for the gloves, I think Sponge are the ones that makes the most sense. It means that you can even chop and change your energy count around, and you can forget about the powerful colorless energy and go more of a standard sort of 6 or 7 water count, and then also be able to sort of do other things with your list, which is pretty cool. It's also fairly easy to find these because we're playing the Inteleon engine. We can find these as one-offs, so you can even just play these as one-offs if you don't want to really lean into them too hard. Galarian Zigzagoon's also another one, just to be able to fix maths here and there. Between that and the pings and the powerful colorless, or even the gloves if you're playing them, you should be able to do a wide range of different amounts of damage. Obviously Galarian Zigzagoon is another one which is just very much insta-play to be able to get a 60 HP Pokemon down to 50 HP to be able to then Toy Catcher it up as well. So that's just another math fixer for you. Onto the matchups. Admittedly, Mew is a bit of a rough matchup. The majority of them aren't running Toxtricity, which means there really aren't that many targets to be able to pull off the Greedent combo against. And basically, because of that, you're kind of not really... You're just... It's 2-prize deck, at which most of the time Mew can very favourably trade into, because they're either copying Genesect for a knockout, or they are able to shuffle themselves in because we're never able to knock out them with Mew. Or not all one-shot them the Mew. So it is a bit of a tough matchup. Admittedly, we don't really care about the Latios stuff or anything like that. Sometimes you just have to gust down the Genesects and things like that, but it can be pretty tough. Mew is such a strong tempo deck. It even out-tempos Suicune in a lot of cases. Jolteon is a bit of a tough one. It's probably the only bad Inteleon matchup other than Rapid Strike, basically because Jolteon is very favourable into the Suicune matchups. It always has been. Jolteon appeared on the scene basically as the Suicune counter, so that makes sense really. And then excuse me, and then Rapid Strike is also pretty rough because they can really deal with your engine quite well, and also basically Greedent is never safe against them because they can easily gust up and rapid flow it for 2 prizes before you've even been able to evolve it, whilst also taking out things like Sobbles and Drizzile. So you can, this is probably the most even of the 3 unfavourables here, because the threat of Suicunes can sometimes just still push through them. But even things like the new Melony build, which is playing Vaporeon, can prove somewhat difficult because the Vaporeons with a damage counter can push into 200. So without your capes, they're able to one-shot you for 1 attachment, which is pretty rough. The rest of these other matchups aren't too bad. Like I say, Genesect. The Genesect matchup is kind of weird because it's very much a tempo race who can get the first 2 prizes here and there, but sometimes you are able to steal away wins by sort of building up the Greedent combo and trying to knock out a Toxel. But usually it's just going to be kind of a slug of who can take the first 2 prizes and who can keep the tempo the most between Genesect and Suicune. Suicune has the slight addition, or is slightly favourable because it's only 2 energy, which is nice. But obviously, Genesect has plenty of ways to accelerate energy, so it's not completely in Suicune's favour. But yeah, it's the kind of the green package doesn't really matter in that matchup. You actually rarely want to get it out unless you're winning the game with it, because Genesect, along with some Toxtricities and some Power Tablets, will be able to one-shot you. The other Suicune decks, obviously, they play Sobbles, but they also play Lotad, so that's even more Pokemon you can feast on. Similarly with Dragapult and Leafeon, a lot of the time running these Sobbles that you can just eventually feast on. Leafeon is kind of awkward because they can one-shot you, one-shot your Suicunes with a Galamine out, and we're not playing any counter stadiums, but equally Leafeon I think is becoming weaker in the format because of Gengar being a pretty bad matchup for you. So I'm not too worried about Leafeon being sort of a bad matchup. I think it's fairly even because you have quite good tempo on them, and you can always go over the top with the Greedent stuff. But I think it's kind of disappearing anyway. And then similarly with Single Strike, Single Strike is a bit of a slugfest, but their VMAXs are kind of pretty well. Their Gengar VMAX is pretty bad against you because we're an Intellion engine, so Panic Fear isn't doing too much, which forces them to attach and lean into the GMAX Swallow, dealing damage to themselves and stuff like that, which we can then hopefully be able to respond with via Inteleon plus Suicune. So I think that matchup is pretty good for you as well. So some closing thoughts. Greedent is basically a slightly memeier version of the Ice Rider build, but I actually think it is slightly better. Basically, I feel like Ice Rider has fallen off a little bit, and the fact that we have a new metal deck around, well, 2 decks that are running metal attackers in high counts, as well as Zacian Zamazenta still like on the fringes, kind of is pushing Ice Rider out of format right now. So I actually think Greedent is in a bit of a better spot anyway, and it's also way more fun because you get to do the highlight reel moment of taking 3 prizes on a Sobble, which is hilarious. There are some matches that can still be tough, but equally Greedent will just steal games every now and again because you'll be able to go from a benched Greedent with no energy, seemingly like no threat because they're having to deal with the Suicune dealing 200 damage to them every turn, to you attaching, Melonying, Echoing Horn, Ping, and then Toy Catcher up and take 3 prizes. It sounds like a lot, but with the Inteleon engine and drawing 3 cards, it's really not that much. So yeah, it's a pretty interesting one. I don't think it's going to be super top tier, but I think it's actually a really nice way of playing Suicune. I think the 2 cards complement each other quite well. So yeah, I think it's a really, really interesting one. But yeah, other than that, thank you very much for watching. Let me know what you guys want to see with Greedent when the set comes out. Obviously, it's one of the most interesting cards, so you'll have to let us know what you're going to be pairing Greedent with. And yeah, other than that, thank you very much for watching. I've been Jack from Omnipoke, and I look forward to seeing you guys in a video tomorrow. Cheers, everyone.